Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this is it. We are here. This is the final half of BoJack Horseman, Season 6, the final season, of course. I can't believe that we're actually here. But once again, I am joined by not one, but two guests because this is the end of, the show. We figured that we get someone else on, which I'll get more into in a little bit. Joining me once again, of course, he's reviewed the last season and a half with me. And of course, he had to come back for this last go around. Here he is. We didn't get to review Little Women together, but we are getting to review this. Here he is, Auburn Wanderer.
Kevin.
What?
You want to know what's interesting?
What?
Do you remember back in July or August of 2014 when we were talking at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I went on YouTube and I'm like, oh, I found something interesting in my subscription box, by the way. And you're like, what is it? I'm like, it's this trailer to the show called BoJack Horseman that's on Netflix.
Yep.
I really wouldn't have imagined that all these years later that show would end up becoming what it became, but
I remember I watched the pilot and I just passed it off as like another Family Guy wannabe, but I was like, damn.
Yeah, it's crazy that we're here. I'm happy to be here. Yeah.
Okay.
We're at the end.
What?
We're at the end.
Yeah, we are. I can't believe it. Cry time for sure. But like I said, because this is the final batch of episodes, we have a lot of friends that do watch the show. So there's a lot of people that we could have chose from. And we decided that it just would not feel right to talk about this final chunk of episodes without getting someone else on. And of course, that one person is someone that's never been on my channel before. He's never been here. He's definitely not someone that has reviewed a lot of stuff with me. In all seriousness, once again, you guys know him. We reviewed Mandalorian together, and we thought that would be the last TV-esque review for a while until the next shitty Facebook Watch show. But thankfully, he is here to talk about something that we all adore. So here he is, FilmFan0599.
Well, hey, what's up, you guys? FilmFan0599 here again, and I'm here to talk about the final half of Season 6 of BoJack Horseman. And so I have been aware of this show pretty much since like 2015 was when I first was really aware of it. Mm-hmm. And I thought it looked just really weird when I first discovered it. I was
same.
This just doesn't seem like something I'd be interested in. Like, this just kind of just looks like another adult raunchy comedy animated series to me. But then when I started talking to this boy, Auburn Wanderer, he was like, the show's actually much more than that. I was like, really?
I was saying that too.
Well, I'm talking about when we first started talking, you idiot.
Yeah, that's true.
Hey, you fucking bitch!
We weren't that close at the time. You're right.
So he was fucked up, Kevin.
So he was like, oh, the show's actually much more than that. I was like, oh, really? I wouldn't have expected that. So in 2018, I secretly watched the entire show with our good buddy 22 Tiger Dude.
He's not here because fuck him.
Are you going to keep on interrupting me during my intro?
The boy! Let this sexy motherfucking bitch talk, okay?
No, I refuse to let you continue, but go ahead.
Fuck you.
Anyways, now this has been very close to being my favorite show of all time. I love this show to death. It's just, I love its characters, its atmosphere, a lot of the topics that it goes into. It's just such a well-crafted show, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I just absolutely adore it. And, it was pretty hard to say goodbye to it. So I am very happy to be on here to talk about the second half of this season with all of you.
Yes, and it's a good thing you are here because I anticipate, even though we're going to talk about obviously what goes on in this season, the last half of this is going to be all of us reminiscing and things like that and talking about, doing a retrospective on the show, that kind of thing. Because there's a lot to really talk about in terms of what the show was able to accomplish. But of course, before we get into all of that, we're going to talk about all of the events that happened within this season. So here's my thing. Because this half of the season, even though the whole show has been, this half of the season is very depressing. And it's full of spoilers. Once again, we have to do spoilers for this season because it's honestly really hard to talk about without doing that. So this is going to be a strictly spoiler review, just like we did for the first half of the season. But like I said, because that half of the season, this half of the season is so depressing and it's so hard to watch at points, and so much of it is centered on BoJack. I thought that, normally I like to talk about the stuff that happens, the most eventful stuff first. We're actually going to save that for the last. We're going to talk about all that stuff last because that's the stuff we have the most to say about. So we're going to talk about all the other characters in this season, because really this half of the season, we see two things with all these characters. We see them basically getting the endings that we want them to have, but also them realizing that they are essentially better off without BoJack. And it's tragic to see, but that is essentially where they all end up going. And just getting into right off the bat, I think one of the best arcs they did this entire season is what they ended up doing with Todd. I adored everything they did with this character, because I've said it before, I love the character, but my issue with him has always been, I don't like that every single season is just, oh, he's got to create some like wacky invention, and it just got very repetitive for me after a while. And I love the seasons where it's a bit more introspective. And this, I think, is the best Todd's ever been. I don't think there's any argument there. I think this is the best he's ever been. I think everything they did with like his mom and things like that was just really well done. And actually, I'm watching Breaking Bad right now, and it gave me a lot of vibes of like what Jesse had to go through in that, because he's in a similar position where like, he ran away from home and things like that. And he's been, living on his own. And the difference is obviously his parents, his mom, he didn't really know much about. He didn't really have much of a relationship with. And we really do kind of get to see that here. And, I know one of your favorite characters, absolutely, Double Nine, is in fact Todd. So what did you think of this storyline?
Oh, I love Todd a lot.
Yeah.
And I really loved what they did here, especially with his relationship with his mother. I thought that was done really well in this season. I really loved seeing that a lot. And I do agree with you. This is the best I think we've ever seen Todd in any of the seasons. I thoroughly enjoyed what they did with this character, because I do, I do love how wacky and shit he can get.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not different here. Like, it still is very wacky with the whole, like, Margot Martindale thing. Like, that's such a Todd thing to do. But what I loved about it here, other than the other scenes, that they give it a little bit more like substance, and it's a little bit more, of a progression for the character, which I loved.
Yes, because other than the stuff with BoJack, this was probably my favorite stuff in the whole season, to be honest.
Him coming out as asexual, that was pretty big too.
Yeah, like this was just great, and I really loved that a lot about this season. I really liked the turns that he got in this, and I honestly enjoyed that. I thought the way that they handled his character and the way that they handled with him ending his story off was pretty great.
Yeah, I know, Caden, as well, you have a lot to say about this too, so go ahead.
Yes, Todd is a fantastic character.
Yes, definitely.
And I will say this: my favorite Todd stuff is still probably the season 3 or season 5 stuff. But in this, Todd becomes the most like human he's ever been.
Definitely.
The stuff with his mom is very well done, because they've hinted at that in previous seasons and all. But to me, in this one, like they really like did a really great job.
Yeah, especially in the penultimate episode of this season, like the first half of this season, they really heavily hinted that was going to be something big.
Yeah, and I thought that they did a great job, giving him, more humanity, but also like doing, it's very Todd-esque, with like, the kidnapping and stuff, and the pies.
Yeah, that was so great.
It's classic Todd stuff, and Aaron Paul does a great job in the role. I gotta say this quickly, man. It's fucking crazy that Aaron Paul he has been in Breaking Bad, this, and now it's gonna be in Westworld. And
he had that Hulu show, The Path, that nobody watched but was pretty good.
Yeah, it's so crazy, man. He's a fantastic actor, and it's just he has a good agent. So yeah.
The other big part of Todd's arc that I really loved is everything going on with Maud, because essentially what we get with Maud is what Todd wanted with that other girl whose name is escaping me right now. But it's the girl that he had a relationship with, and then BoJack slept with her, and then that really went to shit. So it's really everything. No, the character of Maud, I thought they handled so well here because she really is the first woman to truly connect with Todd and also be on a similar wavelength as him. They both have had very shitty upbringings and things like that. They both are in a place where they're not necessarily directionless, but they don't really know what they want to do. But they're also just so great with each other. They have this really great connection and things like that. And the moment where she gets Todd to finally consider the idea of living, getting his own apartment, which is something he's never done before. He's always been living somewhere, whether it's with BoJack, who I love in this season. He brings up how he really just lived with BoJack because that was his only possible option. He never really wanted that. It was just something he did, and he stayed there. And it shows how fractured that relationship really was, how BoJack never really was able to repair it after season 3. And we know notoriously when characters tell BoJack to fuck off, that relationship's done. He's ruined it. And I think we very much see that with Todd in this half of the season. It's not so much that he's, done with BoJack. He's just kind of like tolerating him at this point. And at this point, he just doesn't really want to be associated with him. Obviously, with all the bad press and things like that comes out and all that kind of stuff, that's definitely a part of it. But the idea of him living on his own is something that we just have never really seen with this character before. And it's just such a great moment for him between that and him connecting with his mom. Just so much great stuff going on for Todd this season. I really love what they did with him. But what do you guys want to say about that?
Real quick, and what I forgot to mention, Aaron Paul just does a really fantastic job as this character. Yeah. Like the fact that he plays not only one but two of some of my favorite characters in both of my favorite shows of all time is just something crazy in my opinion. But
it shows how great of a character actor he is.
He just is really fantastic in this show, and honestly, like he really, as everyone else is in this show, really brings this character to life. He does such a great job in the show, and like this is definitely a performance from him.
Yeah, so everything going on with Todd this season I thought was really great. I thought they did a really great job with that. But the other arc that I really do want to talk about before we get into the major stuff was the Mr. Peanut Butter one, because I know you and I agree, Kaden, that the Mr. Peanut Butter and Pickles arc was the weakest arc of this season at first. I thought it was very rushed in the first half of the season. Didn't think they did a really good job in setting up that whole thing. It just came across as very rushed to me. And there are still instances in this half of the season where it feels that way, but I think where they ended up going was really good. And I actually haven't gotten a chance to talk to you about that. So how did you feel about the way that arc concluded overall?
I loved the way it wrapped up.
Yeah.
Because Pickles is not a good person.
No,
she's not. She's too obsessed with herself, and it is too.
And her blogging and things like that.
Yeah, and then like, oh my god, it's just like, I just did not like her, and I listen, Mr. Peanut Butter is not a good person. He is a complete freaking moron, and he has fucked up so many things. Yeah. But listen, I felt bad for him though in that situation, because he just wants to be loved, like a good dog, he don't want to be sad dog, and I felt bad for him. But I thought that the way it wrapped up with the phone call with Diane was really, really well done. Like that was one of my favorite. That was one of my favorite scenes in the whole second part of the whole season. Mm-hmm. Was that phone call between them, and hopefully Mr. Peanut Butter, in the future of wherever the show went in the future, we won't know. Hopefully he still found that happiness within. I really liked how it wrapped up for Mr. Peanut Butter, because it wrapped up in a very Mr. Peanut Butter kind of way, but it was also like good for the character. You know what I mean? So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and especially I think the moment with him and Diane when they're talking about how, like, the great line where they're like, if we met each other now, we could have been even better. But then Mr. Peanut Butter says, like, if we met each other now, we would not be the people that we've become. And I think that really is emblematic of the entire season. A big theme of this show is you know, every single person that you meet has some kind of an impact on who you become. They shape you into whether it's into the person that you end up becoming. And I think that's a big part of this entire show. And I think that phone conversation just really underlies that quite well. Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter are completely different people than they were at the start of the show. And I think we really did get to see that this season for sure. And I really love the way that whole thing wrapped up. I was a little bit worried at first with the whole Joey Pogo thing. But once Pickles ended up leaving him for Joey Pogo because she actually liked the sex with Joey Pogo and she had a real connection with him, I was like, okay, I see what they're doing here. And I like that Mr. Peanut Butter realized that he has relied too much on his connection with women. He wants to focus more on himself. I think it's a really great arc for the character, and I really love the way they wrap things up there while still maintaining the fact that he is still a little too obsessed with himself. I mean, even at the end of the show, when he's talking to BoJack, he jokingly says he's going to run to this woman and get distracted, and he still does do that. So he hasn't changed fully as a character. He's just more, you know, he's a little more cognizant of what he's done wrong, and I like seeing that here.
One of my problems with the first half of the season was kind of the whole Mr. Peanut Butter and Pickles thing. I wasn't that interested in it, honestly. It just wasn't really clicking with me. But the way that was handled in the second half, I actually thought was really great, honestly, and where it wrapped up. Honestly, I really liked it a lot. You know, kind of like with what Kaden said, you know, Mr. Peanut Butter, he really isn't that good of a person, honestly. He's a complete fucking buffoon. But what I liked
he's
about
very naive.
Yeah, but what I liked about this is, you know, like that phone conversation was definitely like one of my favorite scenes of the whole season. And I just kind of love that one line where he's like, you know, maybe we needed to be with each other to kind of be the people we are now. I really like that a lot, honestly, and it was really great, and it shows how much the characters have changed since then. And I kind of like that Mr. Peanut Butter is like, you know, maybe I don't need to always like need love from someone to kind of, you know, maybe I just need to focus on myself, and I kind of like that a lot, honestly. And I thought that was handled really well, honestly. And you know, he still has his isms and
but
whatever.
He's in therapy now, so there is that.
But he has changed, and I like how they, you know, did that in this season, honestly. And you know, I've always loved the character. I've always, you know, enjoyed where he, you know, enjoyed everything that's been involved with him. But like I said, he is a complete fucking moron. But I do like how it is handled here, and how he does finally come to that realization where he's like, you know, maybe I just need to start focusing on myself. You know, and I really love that a lot, honestly. And Paul F. Tompkins really does a great job here. I really love
he was fantastic.
Like, you know, he really did a fantastic job here. And honestly, like I said, I really liked how they wrap things up, honestly.
Yeah, I think maybe his best acting moment is actually when Pickles ends up leaving him, just the way that settles in, and he's like, oh, there's nothing I can do about this. Like, it's kind of, I ruined this whole situation. He didn't even realize that. I thought that was a really, really strong moment for him.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, so everything going on there was really great. But now, of course, we're going to talk about the other two really big arcs of the season. Princess Carolyn maybe ends this show in the happiest place of all the characters. You know, she started off, and again, we've seen that there's a lot of things that she's been through. There's a lot of stress that she's been under, but the one constant has really been BoJack. She's always covered for this character. She's always tried to have his best interests, and I love the moment this season where she kind of comes to that realization that, like, BoJack's right. Maybe she just is better without him. Maybe she is better with letting him go, because even when these allegations come up, she's not thinking about how, oh, BoJack should just confess to it all. She's thinking about the best way to protect BoJack. That is her main interest. She even says in the show that, you know, she's in love with BoJack. There's nobody she cares about more than him. And while I think that is true to an extent, I think she does hold a lot of love for BoJack. I think it also is a very toxic relationship, because there's been so much manipulation there. There's also been so much of her getting in the way of focusing on herself. And we really do get to see that here, you know, with her moments with Judah and things like that. And I just really loved what they did with this character. But if you guys want to weigh in on that.
honestly, in my opinion, I don't think there was a character that deserved more of a happy ending than
Honestly,
Princess Carolyn. Honestly, especially for all the things that she's been going through with BoJack, her job. Just there's always been stress on this character, and honestly, like you said, she's always trying to protect BoJack no matter what. She feels always on a leash with BoJack, honestly. And even when these allegations do come up, she's always like, she's not like, oh, confess to all of them. She's like, all right, here's what we could do. Say this, say that. And even she's like, just stick to the one interview. Do not do another. And, she's always just trying to look out for his neck and whatever. And I honestly really like the fact that, she just kind of is like, maybe I am just better off without BoJack, honestly. And we see that she's honestly happier, without that. And with, I do really enjoy that, honestly. And I thought it was pretty great. And like I said, I don't think there was a character in the show that deserved more of a happy ending than her.
No, definitely not. Yeah.
And I'm glad that she got it.
Yeah, I agree. She's like been through so much, and oh my god, that scene with Judah,
so good,
song,
so good.
It's so great,
it's so good.
That hair down, and he's like playing the song for her, but he's not even playing the guitar. Like he just starts singing. It's so great.
That part is so good. But I was really satisfied with her conclusion because she really she is like a really great example of like a person becoming her own throughout all the struggles that she's been through, and I think that's it's a really, really great arc. And I just thought that it was a really, really well done. And
Yeah, really great stuff with her for sure. Definitely one of the best wrap-ups of any character. But now we're going to talk about the other character that plays the most prominent role in the season besides BoJack, and that obviously is Diane. There is so much great stuff they did with this character. We already talked mostly about how in the first half they had her in this really great relationship with the character of Guy, and they do maintain that here. I kept waiting for it to go off the rails. I kept waiting for something to happen, but no, she actually ends up in a really great place with them. These two really do have an understanding of each other. They're very close. They have this really great relationship, and it was very refreshing to see. You're not used to seeing someone that supports Diane through and through, that is always looking for both of their best interests. That's just not something we're used to with this character. And I really love seeing that. And seeing someone like Diane, who is under so much stress, so much anxiety, to the point where she can't even finish this memoir that she's doing. I just thought they did so much great work with her. And Allison Brie, without a doubt, I think gave her, besides season 5, I think that's her best performance in the whole show overall. This is definitely pretty high up there. And her episode that she gets this season might possibly be my favorite Diane episode thus far. I loved what they did with her there. We see her go through, we've seen her gone through so much like significant stress, especially with even writing the memoir this season. So to see her end off in the place that she does is just really great. And I think besides Princess Carolyn, she maybe had the happiest ending of them all. And I really love what they did with this character here. It's definitely, Diane, if it wasn't for BoJack, would probably be my favorite character of the show. I've loved everything they've done with her. And, Double Nine, what do you want to say about that?
I really love the stuff other than because I don't know why, but I forgot about Diane for a second. This was the other thing I loved besides the BoJack stuff. It was like the BoJack stuff, the Diane stuff, and then Todd stuff. Just that whole episode where she is stressed about making this book is just honestly it was just so she's trying to type up this book. She's where she's okay, let me start here. No, I don't like that. Okay, let me start here, and it's just kind of it's so stressful for her, and she's feeling like she's kind of losing her mind, and it's tough to watch.
Yeah, and I love that the one that's harder for her to write is the one about her own life, while the one that's easy to write is the one about this girl and this, the more positive story about the girl and the detective agency and things like that. That's much easier for her to write than her actual memoir.
Yeah. And like just that whole episode was great, and it was just kind of almost hard to watch at points
Yeah,
because it's
definitely.
just like she's just under so much stress about writing this memoir
Mm-hmm.
and feeling like she needs to do it. Like she needs to get her kind of her story out there and whatever. And like it's just really depressing to watch. And I liked where her character went at the end of the show. And and she really did deserve to be happy, and I really like that a lot. Honestly, there was a quote, especially in that episode where she's writing the book, where it was like, "Your kind of your misery isn't like worthy or whatever, or like your misery isn't worth writing or something like that." And it's just like, man, it's like this character is so hard on herself, and it's just devastating to watch.
Yeah, definitely. And I know Auburn, Caden, someone that does do a lot of, songwriting and things like that. And you've done a lot of lyrics. I'm sure there's a lot you can relate to with this character for sure.
Wait, what are we talking about?
Diane's story.
She doesn't write a song, though. She writes books.
No. I'm talking about like her writing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because that's something you can relate to.
Yeah, I mean, Diane is my favorite character because I think I really relate to her. Diane is, to me, she's such a good portrayal of depression,
Yeah.
Because and like anxiety, because like BoJack's obviously great, but like she like they capture like the awkwardness and like the fear of like not being loved like so well BoJack, but also with Diane, and seeing Diane happy and taking the medication. And also I gotta say that when she goes off the meds, that was like the best like I've ever seen someone going off of meds like in the trail before.
Yeah,
because like I've seen some shit from like This Is Us where there's a character that happens with that, and to me it was just like too just forced, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But in this, to me, it was like it had like that slight comedic element, but it was also like really serious, and I thought that it was just like so well done. And I loved, again, like I said, when she had the books and she was being inspired, she was really like her career was going on track. I love this little like visual thing when she goes to her book signing. There's a little girl in line who's like so excited when she sees her, and like that was so like cool to me because that's what Diane's always like wanted, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
so it's very humbling to watch.
Yeah, have like an impact, like sorts of she's happy, now she's freaking engaged, or I mean they didn't really clarify if she was.
I think she's married.
Yeah, no, but like I don't know if she was just engaged or she was married, but whatever. I mean, there
was a ring.
But I just thought that part was just like, oh, I loved it. I mean, I won't jump ahead to like the final scene too much yet, but like I was really, really happy with how it concluded because I think that she deserved a happy ending, and the way that they did it, I thought was really true to Diane still. So.
Yeah, so much great stuff going on. So yeah, all of our characters pretty much end where we want them to. They end in a lot of, they give their own sort of happy endings. So, they of course get what they deserve in that way. But unfortunately, that's also the case for BoJack. And now, of course, we get to the stuff that I know we have a lot more to talk about because, like I said, while we get a lot of stuff with those other four characters, this is very much mainly about BoJack. And I mean, a lot of the show has been as well, but this half of the season especially, is so centric to what BoJack has been through, his character, the terrible things he's done, all that kind of stuff. It really comes back to haunt him. And look, I think going into that season, that was the thing we were all collectively very excited, but also very scared to see. We didn't know how it was all going to turn out. And I don't think they could have handled it better than the way they do here. And I mean, there's so much to really talk about. So I'm just going to let you guys start off with, just seeing BoJack in the position he is at the beginning of this half of the season, then seeing him completely just down spiral and almost go back to who he was in the beginning of the show. What did you guys think of that overall?
Because we see in the beginning of the season, he's going to rehab, he's getting this, becoming a professor and stuff like that. but I just already knew that was not going to last long because I knew his past was going to bite him in the ass.
It was just too happy. It was too happy. That was
and that's exactly what happens in the second half. It especially really starts off at the end of episode 9 when he gets that phone call from Charlotte. I'm like,
and the way he's just like shaking and just you can tell like he knows what's about to happen,
dude, and just the intensity of it all was just so well done, and just seeing him unfortunately go back to how he was in the beginning of the show, just going down even further into a downward spiral was tough to watch, but we all knew it was coming at some point.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so much that he did prior to that. Like, he was doing some really great work trying to build this relationship with Hollyhock to the point where he was, you know, he was learning stuff about rugby because she was doing rugby. He was interacting with his students. The one student that was struggling, he really was trying to work with her. He generally felt like he had a good relationship with all of his students, but unfortunately, it was just too late. And that does not absolve him, I think, of all of the terrible things he's done. And I think we very much do see that this season, is that although BoJack tried to turn things around, it was too late. It was just simply too late. There were too many things that he had done prior that were going to inevitably catch up to him. And we really do get to see that here. And, you know, Kane, I know you have a lot to say, so definitely get into it.
Hang on, I'm writing a comment about something.
Oh my God. All right. So I'll just keep talking then. So yeah, they do a lot of great work with, you know, building all of that up. I love like the moments where, like I said, he's interacting with all the students, but when he gets that phone call, man, I mean, that's when everything just goes off the rails for him. That's when everything just kind of ends. And even in that first episode, I mean, you can tell things are not great. Hollyhock is not wanting to have anything to do with him. She's like, why are you talking to me so much? She's trying to avoid him. You know, you can tell that she knows, you know, that even though we didn't get to see it, she very much does know that he was the one that caused Pete Repeat and Maddie to end up in the hospital and get Maddie in the, you know, when she had that, you know, alcohol poisoning and things like that. He was the one who was the root cause of that. She knows that he was the one behind it. And you can see that it has very much changed her perception of him. She wants nothing to do with him. And I think there was a part of us, though, and even BoJack, that was hoping that she would be able to overcome that. But I think it's just there was too much that he had done, and she already didn't have that much of a relationship with him. Remember, these two did not know that they were even brother and sister until the end of season 4. So she still did not really know, and she's been away at college since then. So she really did not know much about BoJack, and to have all of this thrown at her, I mean, why would she ever want to interact with him after that? And I think it was a very wise choice to just not see her after that, because why would she want to be associated with BoJack anymore? She doesn't want any part of this story. So I like the fact that aside from that letter, that is the last time we do see her. I think that's a really great idea. That's something else I'm going to come back to in the finale, but I think they did an excellent job with that here. All right, Caden, go ahead.
All righty. Man, there's a lot to say.
Yeah, where do we even start?
You know, the Hollyhock stuff, you know, to me, that's the saddest thing that happened.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, in terms of, like, the consequences of all of this coming out. Like, I'm not, the saddest thing that happened to him was the Sarah Lynn thing. But, but it coming out, the saddest part was this. Mm-hmm. Because, like Kevin was saying, like he never really got to know Hollyhock as much as he wanted to, and they had a really, really good bond. They showed that in the first part of the season, and you know, just to see it just, you know, go downhill is just, you know, it's just like so sad, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And you know, like, you know, I've seen people, you know, say like, oh well, you know, it was kind of anticlimactic. I mean, but like not everyone in that universe is going to want to confront BoJack about it, because like it's scary what he did.
Exactly.
Like people need to understand, like you know, people I've like seen people say, well, if BoJack was a real person, you didn't know him, you'd hate him. Well, yeah, because we don't know why he got to that point. And also the difference is that BoJack is really remorseful about what he did.
Mhm.
a lot of people in the situation wouldn't be, and that's to me because like I got like a comment from my friends on like an Instagram post I did, saying like the ending was sad, and like I just agreed with them because I said to them like, yeah, there's certain parts about that are sad, but the thing about it is that BoJack got the happiest ending he probably could have gotten.
Yeah.
Because he literally almost died. He died and then was able to be revived.
Yeah.
And he went to. My theory was that he was gonna go to prison.
Yeah.
For what he did to Sarah Lynn. Now he did because of the break-in, but like I thought that ending was the ending that should have happened. So I was happy I went there. But like I think it ended happen. But definitely the Hollyhock thing is very really sad because he's not going to be able to have a chance to at least, end it on terms where, like, they are, they can say proper goodbyes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
and honestly, a lot of people have speculated this, and I do too. I really do think in that letter she told him to fuck off. I really do think she said that. I think she said fuck off, and I don't want anything else to do with you. And as we know, when characters say the word fuck in this show, that means that's a relationship that BoJack has ruined beyond repair. And I think that's very much the case with Hollyhock.
And that might be the case because they only say the F word once in a season.
Yeah, and they didn't this season.
But yeah, they did.
Wait, when was that?
In episode 8 with the director.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean that probably so. Yeah, I mean, but I don't know. I'm happy. Like I have like a slight complaint about some of the pacing of the season, but they left some things ambiguous, and I was fine with that because it was really easy to fill in the blanks, and it let us as the audience get even more connected into the story by letting us figure out it for ourselves. And yeah, so that stuff is really sad. But yeah, I mean, there's so much we can go to. I mean,
no, definitely. I think one of the biggest, most impactful moments of this season for sure is when everyone is first finding out about these allegations. The way that they react to it, I think, is very interesting. Todd right away wants nothing to do with this. He is telling BoJack like, you can't, this is really bad. And I like the fact that, as we said, Princess Carolyn is sticking by him while you see that Diane and Todd are like, no, this is really problematic. What he did is really bad, and this is not something that you should stick by. He should confess to everything, and when he doesn't, they leave him. And it's devastating to watch, seeing Todd basically not wanting anything to do with BoJack, not even letting him into his own house. Not his own house, but like Todd's house. And things like that. And then Diane, not even being able to watch the footage, and her, realizing that this is just doing more harm than good. It's just a really interesting, it's much different for, I knew obviously that these characters were going to react to it, but not as quickly as they really did, because pretty much after these allegations come out, that's the end of almost every relationship that BoJack's had, minus Princess Carolyn, until that interview when she realizes, yeah, maybe I should just get away from him. So even that really falls from the cracks. But yeah, I would very much agree that Hollyhock is the saddest, because even with those friends, Hollyhock was family. Hollyhock was his sister that he could have had a really good bond with, but she just came too late into his life. And unfortunately, they just were never able to make that solid connection. But to see that, and then everyone else just completely disavow him after that. Again, this is something we should have saw coming. And does BoJack kind of deserve it? I mean, there are a lot of things he's done. I don't want to say he fully deserves it, but everything that happens to him, like in terms of things he's done, definitely. There's a lot of things he's done that are really bad. There's a lot of things that he's done that, especially in this season, I mean, the most shocking thing, and Caden will agree on this, that the whole thing with Sarah Lynn, we already knew that, he waited a long time. I did not think he waited a whole 17 minutes, though. That's easily the worst thing he's ever done. And we very much do see that here. It's easily the worst thing he's done. And and you can see that even he is regretful of it, but it does not change the fact that he did it. And I think the episode with the interview, for me, is one of the hardest episodes to ever watch of the show. I was cringing so much, but not in the sense it was bad. I was cringing because it was just so hard to watch, seeing everything unravel and seeing BoJack just completely destroy himself in that interview. He was doing such a terrible job but it felt so real. Like if BoJack was a real person, this is very much how it would have played out. It would be messy. It would not be coherent. He would not be able to get away from all this. And I think that's what's so devastating about it, is that he does not come out of this in the way that he wanted to. And I think we very much do get to see that there. And that interview episode especially, I think is a great example of that.
Yeah, no, that's something that like no one has talked about.
Yeah.
Like no one is like, okay, I'm in the BoJack subreddit, and like there's like a popular-ish post about it, but like everyone's just talking about the ending, which I get. It's the ending. Everyone wants to know how what is the legit like final few minutes of the show, but no one talks about that. And you know, and for me, like, here's my thing. Part of me most of me didn't want to see BoJack get fucked over by this because I care about him. And but at the same time, I was like, okay, listen, what he did was super messed up.
Yeah, exactly.
But when they revealed, because this wasn't something that we knew. What we knew was, okay, if I'm mistaken, the way we knew that there was a 17-minute thing, but unless I'm mistaken, they have always said that it took 17 minutes for the paramedics to arrive.
Yeah, we didn't. Yeah, we did not know.
Yeah, that would happen.
We did not know that he waited a full 17 minutes to call them.
Let me talk, Kevin. Let me shut up. Let me talk. What we didn't know was that it was actually 17 minutes he waited to call, and he let her die. Not only did he give her all the fucking heroin and shit when she was like trying to get sober, but he let her die. And like both ways, you know what I mean? It's like it's just like, and there I was like, you know what, BoJack has to be held accountable.
Yeah,
because it's also it's just, you know, it needs to be shown also, because so many people have identified with BoJack, and yes, most of those people have tried to get better, but you know what, people still need that reality check that if you need to pay the consequences for killing someone, basically.
Yeah,
he basically murdered her.
No, he did. He did.
It's horrible, you know. And listen, I still like BoJack as a person, regardless of what he did. He was remorseful, and he didn't do what he did to Sarah Lynn, trying to kill her.
No,
those 17 minutes. I know in those 17 minutes he wasn't thinking, "Oh my God, I'm just gonna let her die." He was panicking the fuck out like he never has, and he wasn't thinking properly. You know, but like still, what he did was like so messed up, and I was really mad when that first interview happened. Everyone was treating him like a superstar. I'm like, wait, are they really gonna go in this direction? But then, like instantly, I want to do a second review, and I was like, okay, good, because we need to see BoJack go to shit for this. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, we don't.
I didn't want to
be just like, you know, see this just like everything else, where Princess Carolyn's been able to get him weasel out of this situation, and he's come out on top. We don't want to see that this time.
And the thing also is that you know, I didn't like I'm really happy that BoJack was held accountable for what he did, just because it works for the narrative, but it's also it's just a good message, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And listen, I will say this, just to jump forward. For episode 15, I skipped the credits.
Yeah, a lot of people did. I also did.
But people said you should have stayed, because at the end of the credits you start to hear a heartbeat.
Yeah, you do.
So when I went into episode 16, I had no idea what it was going to be about, because all it said was like a celebration or something. And I was like, wait, like, I'm like, okay, I don't know what the hell that means. And then when it shows that he was able to be revived, I was pissed. Because episode 15 made me cry my fucking eyes out. And like, it was such a moving portrayal of death. Like, it was like he was dying. And like, it was just like, it was so, oh my God, the Diane, the phone conversation. Oh, that was, and then when it just cut instantly with the flat line. But then halfway through the finale, it was like right before he started talking to Todd, because I was like, okay, I like how this is going.
I was the same way, actually, yeah.
But I was like, but like they made a whole episode about him dying, so why is he still alive? And then it hit me that the point of it is to show that he had to hit that rock bottom for him to come to terms with that. You know what? I fucked up. I really fucked up. And it's something that I just have to deal with and move on from. And it's also something that if they killed him off, that would be a horrible message.
Yeah, because it basically just
because it's important, the message of the show, and the reason it's so popular is because of how much we've identified with BoJack. Because these creators have not, and the show writers, they have not been afraid to go to places of BoJack. They have done pedophilia and overdoses, in neglect and child abuse. It's like they have done so much stuff. But the thing is that it's made him even more human, and it's not that the Penny stuff was super super fucked up. But the thing at the same time is that it's just the show wasn't afraid to go to the darkest of human thoughts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But also it was so funny at the same time. Obviously, the ending is not funny, but
no, not at all.
No, I mean, but it's just I don't know. I mean, I loved the way it ended, and I mean, episode 15 though, the view.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that. Trust me, we're getting into it.
Man.
But, yeah, the other thing I want to talk about though before we get to episode 15 is the other thing that really sets BoJack over the edge. The Hollyhock letter, already we can see that he's starting to regress. One of my favorite shots the entire season is when he's in that room with this party going on with a bunch of nobodies, and you can see just how out of place he feels, how this is the only place where he can kind of be safe right now, which is so devastating. He's not even safe in his own house because he's been evicted, because he owes, this is the only way he was able to pay off that money. But it's the episode where he goes to Angela Diaz's house, and we find out this huge revelation that, throughout the entire show, we've basically thought that BoJack had no control over Herb's firing, that he had to stay tight-lipped about it. He wasn't able to do anything. It was basically just an executive decision that he could not do anything about. But it turns out when he is talking with Angela that he actually could have had some sway. He could have done something about it. And the way that just sets him over the edge, because that really was the thing that put BoJack where he was when he, when Horsing Around was canceled and Herb was fired. This ruined so much of his life. This is when he started to go more on that darker path. He definitely still had it, but that's when it fully sent him over the edge, and he became the person we saw at the beginning of this series. And I think that moment is so devastating to watch. And oh my God, Angelica Houston did such a great job playing an executive that just doesn't give a fuck. She loves the fact that she's fucked him over. She loves the fact that there's nothing he can do about it. This is something that she's, wanted to do for years, because it's a great way of showing just how cynical networks can be, how they do everything in their power to come on top in the end. And we very much did get to see that here. And I think it was such a amazing moment.
Yeah, no, that whole thing and was really well done. And but to me, the Blu-ray, and then when he breaks into his old house and watches it on the TV with the, I know it's so sad. I was watching when they show the screen test. I knew the point of it was to show how happy and excited he was for his career, and then when they showed the Herb flashbacks, they also were going towards. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were trying to show just how happy,
how much of a bright future he had. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I was okay, I know, and I was man, that's so sad. But then they had to prove that's the point by cutting to black and showing his face in the TV reflection.
Yeah.
It's just it's just so, and I instantly was oh man.
It's one of the best shots of the whole show, I think. Definitely.
I agree. I mean, it's it's up there with him seeing the balloon inflated.
I know that was your favorite shot.
Oh, that's easily the best shot of the whole fucking show. The show stop. That's easily the best shot.
Yeah,
but it's shot. Just man, I mean, it's just that whole part was just so sad. The saddest things to me is that in the Hollyhock stuff. You know what I mean?
Definitely, yeah. Something else I forgot to mention with the Angela Diaz episode is, the whole point of them meeting up is to get BoJack to sign the rights away to Horsing Around so she can then edit it out. It's just going to be called All Round, and she's just going to have, the 3 kids, on their own. And I feel it says a lot about, how cynical, like I said, networks can be. But then the Herb stuff is just kind of like, because that's already bad enough. The Herb stuff is just the nail in the coffin. That's what really does fully break BoJack at that point, and it's just really hard to watch because, again, you know that, yes, he fucked up. You know that, yes, obviously, he's done a lot of things that he's been held accountable for, but this is not something that he should have to go through. He should not have been manipulated into doing this, and it really just makes you think of the life he could have had, what he could have done if he had done things differently, and it's just, it's so heartbreaking to think about. And I know we haven't let you talk for a little bit, Double Nine, so what do you want?
No, I didn't want to interrupt, I don't like interrupting
when
everybody's
talking. Just jump in, man. Just jump in. We're having a nice...
No, I don't, if you guys are talking about something, I don't like jumping in. I like hearing you guys talk about whatever.
What do you want to say about all the stuff we've talked about?
No, the whole thing with the interview was like easily like one of the most like unsettling things to watch in this whole show.
Movie.
Like it was just like, oh god, just seeing everything come into full fruition and just seeing basically BoJack having to own up to everything he has done is just so unsettling to watch. Like with Caden, I do like BoJack a lot as a character, but at the same time, I really do think he needs to be held accountable for the things that he has done, because this shit is really, really bad, especially the stuff with Sarah Lynn. It's like, because like he said, we've never really known what those 17 minutes were. And like, there could have been a possibility she could have been saved, but he just waited and
that's
she died.
What I was saying about it.
It was like, fuck, dude. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, it was almost like that. Like, and it was just, it was like, god damn it, man. Like, it was just so tough to watch. The whole scene, that whole interview it might be, in my opinion, the most intense thing in this entire show. Honestly, like in my opinion, there's no moment I think that has literally had me more skin crawling than that scene, because it's just literally all coming to the forefront, and it's just literally destroys BoJack's life. And that whole scene where he's like at the former boss's house of ABC and whatever, he like fucking goes back to his old house, gets all drunk and watches his original tape of BoJack. One of my favorite shots, besides the final shot, is when he turns off the TV and he sees himself. Fuck. Like, it's just, whew.
Yeah, so with all of that, now we're getting into stuff that I know you guys really want to talk about. So as I say, every single season, and especially for this season, the penultimate episode of the first half of the season was the most calm and uplifting episode of BoJack we've ever had. So I knew that this second half, they were planning something really big. They were planning something that we were going to be talking about for a long time. They were going to go all out, because the penultimate episode are always the heavy hitters. Those are the ones that always affect me the most. And I even told this to Double Nine. I legitimately think every single one of those is collectively my favorite episode of the series, because I think every single one of them is the best version of this show that I personally love. So I love obviously there's a lot to talk about here, but this penultimate episode really works as a culmination of everything we've gotten up to this point. And I know we all have a lot to say, so we're just going to have a discussion about everything that went down in this penultimate episode, because, I mean, where do we begin, really? I mean, there's so much to really discuss here.
I just want to say this quickly before we start talking about this. Now, the view from halfway down is, in my humble opinion, a masterpiece in television. I absolutely love this episode.
Yeah.
I was completely speechless after the end of this episode.
Oh my god, yeah.
Just so much happens, and just so much. It literally broke me. Honestly,
I gotta interrupt you quickly, Tyler. Did you watch the credits for it?
I didn't watch the credits.
Okay, because it's so interesting because like I've seen people say that they
I
never
didn't
skip
either.
the credit. I'm just curious because I've seen people say they never skip the credits, but this and the Sarah Lynn were like when she overdoses the only time they've ever like not like skipped the credits. Like it's interesting. So.
No, I immediately went into the next episode because I was like, oh shit, I want to see what happens next.
Yeah,
so,
same.
But no, just this episode, like. Not since episode 14 of Breaking Bad has literally an episode of a television show really stuck with me the way that this one did. Honestly, it's just so incredible, and like I just wanted to say that quickly before we start.
To me, like, okay, the showstopper is still definitely my favorite episode of the show.
Yeah, that's definitely.
But I have to say something. I think the view from halfway down. I think this is more intense than the showstopper.
It definitely is.
Because the showstopper was so intense because it was like so visual, and this was also visual. But the showstopper, yeah, it was like about death in certain aspects, but like. You're dealing with just death and like why you died, and it like
and also the regret of death for some.
Yeah, and it's just like it's so like insane. Like honestly, to me, in terms of like emotional intensity, like this is up there with like the season 2 finale of Twin Peaks. That which is like the most intense thing like ever. And Ozymandias is. Breaking Bad, that episode is just like I know Kevin still has to see it.
I'm getting there.
But that episode is yeah. So it's honestly up there, and it is a 10 out of 10 episode for me. The finale is also 10 out of 10. So
same.
Yeah, it's just but let's get into it.
Yeah, so the way this episode starts off, you see BoJack and this young Sarah Lynn, and at first I thought this was like a flashback. I thought that's what they were going to do, was going to be a flashback, and then we were going to get this crazy shit for the penultimate episode, but it becomes pretty clear once we see like Corduroy Jackson, who I actually forgot about his character, and then once we saw him again, I was like, oh yeah, the guy that died from like asphyxiation in season 2, I forgot about him. And then, we see Cracker Jack, and we see basically Herb, because, Herb and all the characters that have died within this show. And we realize what this really is. This is BoJack in his mind, reconnecting with everyone that has been gone and everyone that he hasn't been able to make those final connections with, but also him basically not wanting to face reality that he is dead, that he was not being able to be pulled out of that pool. And there's just so much great imagery going on here. But I think for all of these characters, not only do we get to see the people that they've become since they've, in the afterlife, since they've died, but it's also us getting to see, the best part and worst moment of their life, realizing just how tragic a lot of their lives really were. And we really do get to see that here. For me, the one that hit the most besides Sarah Lynn, of course, was actually Secretariat. The fact that he is so regretful of his suicide. He thinks the best part was the decision to jump off that bridge, but the worst part is the aftermath, him realizing what he did. And the scene where he's reading that poem is maybe the most tragic scene of the entire episode for me. You can just hear the regret and the just overall intensity and overall just pain in his voice. It's so hard to watch, and there's just so much to really get into here. And I know you guys love the episode so much, and I don't want to take that away from you or anything like that. So I guess just go ahead, because there's so much to get into.
But no, just like, because at first, like you, I thought it was a flashback, but then I saw BoJack's gray hair. I was like, huh? I was kind of confused at first.
Yeah, no, same. I actually instantly knew it wasn't because of the gray hair, because like I noticed it right away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I was like, huh? But once the pieces started coming more and more together, I was like, wait a minute, is he dead? Like, it was like, because all the characters that were dead were with him. And I was like, oh shit. And just that whole show scene where where it's all leading up to the BoJack's
Oh my God.
BoJack going, the whole sequence is just fantastic. Like, it is so emotional, and I do agree with you. The whole thing with Secretariat, God,
especially also him being his father as well, and kind of seeing that this is the father BoJack wish he had, a father that he could have connected to, a father that was an accomplished writer, a father that cared about his son and wasn't a piece of shit like he was in real life.
Yeah, and just hearing the regret when he is saying that poem, when it gets near the end, and when that door gets closer.
Maybe Will Arnett's best acting in the whole show. It's definitely up there for me. It's definitely up there.
Like, when the door gets like closer and closer to him, it's just like, God, you just hear the regret in his voice, and man, it's like really tough to watch. And I think they did it. I just honestly thought it was really well done. It was really emotional too. But the thing that got me the most was Herb's introduction for BoJack. Like it was just, oh God. And then when it keeps on going closer and closer to his face, it's just so, oh man. And then when the abyss is just getting closer and closer to him, he's making that phone call to Diane. It's just, God, man, it's just so fantastic. It's so emotional. Like, honestly, I almost just cried watching it, because it's just like, it just really felt like the end. Like, this is the end for BoJack, and I thought the way that it handled death and the regret, for some cases, the regret of death was really well handled, and it just made for such an emotional and intense episode.
Yeah, and before I let Caden talk, just one other thing I was going to say, just like the actual in terms of the quality of this episode, just the all of the effort they put into it, the attention to detail is so great here. The fact that the meal we see all of them eating is the last meal they ever ate. So like for Cracker Jack, it's rations. For Beatrice, it's stuff she would have eaten in a hospital bed. For Sarah Lynn, it's the fast food that she never was able to eat as a kid. Things like that. I just thought they really got to show who these characters were and just what they could have been. And, someone like Sarah Lynn, for example, who the worst thing that ever happened to her was becoming famous. She could have been, she could have a much better life, but because she became famous, because, she had such a terrible upbringing, it's what killed her in the end. And it's just obviously BoJack as well, but it's really what sent her down that down spiral. And just seeing things like that, the show just did such a incredible job with it. You can really see how much these writers respect all these characters, even the ones that aren't with us anymore. And I really love seeing that here.
One more thing to talk about that for some reason we neglected to bring up in this. I guess there was, because there was so much to talk about within that finale, but we did not bring up the whole scene with Sarah Lynn, the scene that everyone's talking about where she sings a reprise of the song that we get in the season 5 penultimate episode, Don't Stop Dancing. It's the song that Gina sang to BoJack, and I cannot think of a better song for her to sing, mainly because it really brings her character full circle, considering that we know BoJack said this to her when she was a little girl. These words have pretty much haunted her throughout her life, but it also is a nice companion piece to the original Don't Stop Dancing, which, as we alluded to, did have messages about death and things like that, but this one is really solidifying that idea that, this is it. This is the last time you can really do what you love. In Sarah Lynn's case, it, of course, is singing. In other people's cases, it's doing other things. But just seeing her eventually stare into, that black void. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a creepier scene on that show than that one. And just the reaction that BoJack has, the reaction that I think all of us have when we first watch it, just everything about that scene was so brilliant. Kristen Schaal, I mean, even though she was not a main character this season, the spirit of Sarah Lynn loomed over every single episode within this season, definitely. And I think this really was maybe her best work to date, and I just absolutely loved what they did with her here. I think it was just such an amazing scene that is easily, I think, when looking back on BoJack, this is definitely going to be one of the scenes we remember the most for sure.
Yeah, man, it's it's an episode literally just about death.
Yeah.
It's not about much else. It's quite the emotional journey to say the least.
Definitely.
It's just interesting because the title of the episode, it's like it goes like the pool is like, it's interesting because like the idea of the halfway down, he's like halfway down into the pool, but it's a metaphor for how he's halfway down to dying.
Yeah.
So that's what the title really means, and how it's executed in the episode is just so scary and just tragic. That phone conversation with Diane is just and then it just cuts to black. It's just it's really just this is the only episode of BoJack that's made me cry. I almost cried when he tried to commit suicide in the finale of season 3. But
I did.
Yeah, but that I got really emotional. Also the episode of where he's underwater, that was so good. But yeah, no, I just cried. Dude, literally when I cut to black, I literally said out loud, "Oh, what the fuck, man!" I was just it was just it's just so sad, man. It's just it's a fucking amazing episode. In terms of penultimate episodes, my favorite's definitely the showstopper. But this one might be my second favorite. It's either this or the season 4 one with his mom.
Oh yeah, that one's so good.
Time Terror.
Listen, season 4 is my least favorite season. I know that's a hot take, but that episode is fucking amazing. But yeah, so yeah, it's a fucking incredible episode that just destroys you emotionally. Oh my god, all the performances and stuff, and the way they went out doing what they love and all. It's just so great.
Yeah, and when Sarah Lynn first goes into the abyss as well, and just the initial shock of it all.
Yeah, and
so
I love how everyone was doing what they were loved doing, but BoJack just went right up to the door. Obviously, he started running away into the phone call with Diane, but it's just it's such a fucking amazingly written episode, and Will Arnett is I think his best performance is in Free Churro still, but that was amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely up there for sure. But
yeah, that's another thing I just not to interrupt you, but Will Arnett's performance, honestly, I've always loved him as this character. I really don't think I really do think you couldn't really have gotten the more perfect guy to really bring this character to life. But in this episode, man, he's just his performance is just so heartbreaking. And look, he really just deserves everything for this, honestly. Seriously, I really loved his performance, not only just in this episode, but just this whole season in general.
Yeah, it's his career-defining role for sure.
I would very much agree with that, honestly. He's just phenomenal.
Yeah, definitely. But so I think we've talked as extensively as we can about this penultimate episode. So I think we should just jump right into the finale. As Caden said, when they initially revealed that he died, a part of me was happy with that idea, but I also maintain the idea that I would not have liked if the show ended with him dying, because of the fact that it essentially is a narrative that all this bad shit happens to you, you're able to run away from your problems, and that's it. I was hoping that's not what they were going to do. So when they revealed that he was actually alive and he was able to be discovered by, the family that was living there and things like that, and now he has to pay for his sins in jail, I just thought that was such a great moment. And while initially I didn't like how much they were skipping over things, once we got to the conversations with Todd and Princess Carolyn and Diane, I really understood what they were trying to do, because this final episode is very different from the rest of the show. It's very focused squarely on these 5 characters. If you notice, there's not a single character that speaks besides them in this episode. Such a amazing choice in that way. And the episode's also called, good while, good while it lasted, or something. I think that's the title. It's Good While It Lasted. I think that really sums up the entirety of this episode, because it really is about BoJack realizing how much the world has changed in just a few months. Everyone that he once was close with, he just isn't anymore. He doesn't understand them anymore. I think the best example of this is, of course, the conversation with Diane at the end, definitely, but also the conversation with Todd. I mean, he's just such a completely different person. He's so much more optimistic. He's so much more happy about things. And it's something that BoJack is caught off guard by. And it shows that these characters really are the best versions of themselves when they are away from BoJack. But similar to Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter, they would not be the people they were if it wasn't for them being in BoJack's life. This got them to realize how much potential they had. And I think that's something else this episode really wants us to take note of. And I think they did an excellent job with that here. And I know, Caden, you said at first you were upset with this finale, but then eventually came to love it overall. So what do you want to say?
I think this finale is fucking perfect. Like, I don't have, like, any issues with it, because, like,
No.
it wraps up all the characters, like, so perfectly. You know what I mean? Because, like, once I was like, okay, him dying but then being revived is, like, perfect for the character, because it forces him to realize, okay, you know what, I need to, be able to move on. You know what, not move on, but, like, accept what happened. And just having that reality check and going to jail, and then, coming out for the wedding, it's just like, it's just, man, all the conversations, like, the one with Todd, with, like, the fireworks, and then him talking about,
and the hokey pokey,
yeah, that stuff is fucking amazing, dude. It's so Todd. And then what was, like, the last line that Todd said? It was so great.
It was something about turning your life around and things like. Oh, it was when BoJack was talking about what happens if I what happens if I go down the same path again, and Todd says then you turn yourself around. Yeah,
it's just so great. I thought it was fantastic. It's just that whole fucking finale, man. And then Princess Carolyn, that was beautiful. That conversation, she's happy, she's married, she finally has what she wants. She has her own fucking, like, studio now. It's like, it's so great. But I really want to talk about that conversation with Diane.
Yeah, definitely. And
because
just before we get into that, the stuff with Princess Carolyn, I think the best thing about that scene isn't so much the, seeing the years of history between those two. It's seeing the way that she's able to finally stand up to BoJack and just tell him, no, I'm not going to be able to be there for you this time. I have my own life. I can't keep covering up for you. It's a really great moment. It shows she's being able to take in control of her life, something she really has not been able to do because something's always gotten in the way of it. And it's just such a great moment for that character.
I agree.
But yeah, the Diane conversation, we got to get into that because there's so much to love there.
But before I get into that, I want to talk about some of the things beforehand, like because I know you guys didn't like at first didn't like the fact that he got revived and stuff like that. But for me, I did not want him to die because I wanted him to own up to what he did. I wanted him to face up to the consequences of his actions. What I do love about in this finale is he's kind of like, all right, I need to accept what happened. I need to own up to what I did. And I think it's really handled well, honestly. And just the conversations that he does have with all the characters. First we see him it's kind of having one last conversation with Mr. Peanut Butter, and then seeing him talking to Todd, which I love that whole conversation between him and Todd. That was great. And, the conversation that he does have with Princess Carolyn as well was really fantastic. But in my opinion, really where it really just hit it all was that conversation with
Yes.
Diane. I don't think there was a thing that I think the show needed to end off more than that, honestly, because like the thing that did make me so interested in the show at first was the two of them.
Absolutely. No,
because
I'm with you. It's the moment in episode 5 or 6 when she's going to visit her her parents, I believe, and he gets in that car and he realizes the love that he has for her. That was definitely the moment that got me on board as well.
So to have it end with the two of them was just perfect, in my opinion, honestly. And it just was so great. I love that whole conversation between the two of them. And I was just like tearing up during it because it's like, this is like the final time we see the two of them talk together, and just seeing like, you know, just seeing that Diane, like we said earlier, is, you know, in a very happy place and whatever. You know, BoJack's owning up to what he did and whatever. It's just the perfect ending. I honestly really do think they wrap up things perfectly. I really do think, because before I was watching the series finale, I was like, I'm just really hoping that just really ends off things on the way that I want it to. Honestly, I really just want this to really be fulfilling for every character. Honestly, I really do think they do a fantastic job. That there's no really anything that I would say that I'm not fulfilled with. Honestly, I think each character got the ending that they needed, and just having that final shot of the two of them, like just, you know, just with the sky and just the both of them looking at the camera, it's perfect. And having that song play, it was just so emotional, and I was weeping. I could not hold it in for much longer. I was just like, wow, we're at this point. You know, we're really at this point, huh? And it was just so emotional, and just like, you know, because I have really grown to love these characters so much throughout the 2 years I've been watching this show. And like, I never would have thought in a million years I would just have such an attachment to a cast that's led by a talking horse. But here we are. And it's just so, I never thought in a million years I'd be crying about a talking horse, but here we are, and it's just done so beautifully. And I love it so much, honestly. I really do think it was just the perfect way to go out, and I couldn't have asked for a more perfect ending for the show.
Before Caden gets to talk about the Diane scene and things like that, I just want to say, for me, I very much agree with Double Nine that I don't really think the show could have ended on a better scene, because at one point, these two were the two characters that understood each other the most. That's why Diane had so much vitriol that she did. That's why she, in season 5, was so angry at BoJack. It's because of how close their relationship really was. However, I like that the way we end the show, he almost doesn't even recognize her. She's become an entirely different person. The way that she carries herself, the way that the attitude she has is just completely different overall. It really shows how much she's grown over the show. And it's just such a great moment in showing how people come and go in your lives, and there's not much that you can do about it. And that's something that BoJack, I think, has to kind of come to terms with in that final scene, that, like, I think for not just Diane, but all these characters, I do think this is the last time he's going to talk to them again. Yes, Mr. Peanut Butter is probably going to drive him back to the jail cell and things like that. But other than that, this will be the last time he sees all of them. This will be the last time they have that conversation. Maybe they'll, you know, re-enter his life one day. But as of right now, this is the last time he's going to talk to them on a regular.
The only one that I think is the Diane one, because they literally say it is.
Yeah, I think definitely this is probably the last for most of these characters. And, you know, maybe one day they'll re-enter his life, but who knows? And I think just the uncertainty of it all, you know, knowing, is he going to be able to reconnect with certain people? We don't know. Is he going to be able to turn himself around, as Todd suggested? We don't know. Is he going to be able to fix things? We don't know. Just the uncertainty of it all is so deeply realistic in that way. It's something we can all very much relate to. You know, we want to be able to do things, but we don't know what the future holds. And that's similar for BoJack. He is kind of realizing that like this switch is going to be something that takes a lot longer than he thought it was. He was at a point where he was getting better, but now he doesn't really know what the future holds for him. And I think it's a perfect way to wrap things up for sure. I don't really think they could have done a better job of that. And similar to what Diane says in that conversation with her, Mr. Peanut Butter, you know, there's that one puzzle piece that doesn't fit. And BoJack was that puzzle piece. He didn't fit into any of these characters' lives, but he made them better individuals. They were turned into better individuals because of their time with BoJack. And we really do get to see that here.
However, for me, the other really satisfying part about this conversation is that after, 6.5 seasons, Diane finally gives BoJack a response to a question that he asked her all the way back in season 1. If you remember in the episode Downer Ending, the big scene that we leave off in is BoJack asking Diane if he is a good person. Is he going to be all right? And Diane basically tells him here that, like, even though the two of them probably aren't going to be friends anymore and she's not going to be able to talk to him after what happened, she just can't really be there at that point because things are just too good in her life to have something, as toxic as BoJack in her life right now. She tells him that, like, he is going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. And I think that's such a great, final send-off there, because it shows that even though Diane, there's a lot of hate, you can tell, and there's a lot of regret and vitriol in what she's saying. I don't think there's any denying that like, when she says this is going to be the final time they talk, it very much is, for sure. I do think she still does care immensely about BoJack. She cares about his well-being. She wants him to be okay. She even says that, like, when he didn't when he left her that voicemail, her biggest worry is that he had died, and she hated the fact that, like, she never heard back from him after that, not knowing if he was okay. So you can tell that even though she's moved on and she knows she can't be friends with him, she still feels that connection. And I think that little sentence alone of her assuring him that everything's going to be okay just really solidifies how important that relationship was. I mean, throughout a good portion of the show, people thought that BoJack and Todd were the most important, BoJack and Princess Carolyn, but I think these last 2 seasons have really shown the most important relationship in this entire show was Diane and BoJack, 2 individuals that really did understand each other at one point, 2 individuals that had a real connection, but have veered off in completely separate directions by the end of it, and it's just the perfect way to send things off, and I just really loved the way they did that here. I think it was just absolute perfection, for sure.
Yeah, man. That scene with Diane, what they never like really go into like they do, but they never like say specifically like why BoJack like gravitated so much towards Diane. Was she was the most open about her depression like with BoJack, but like the thing about it was that they both cared so much for each other regardless of like what happened.
Yeah.
And that's why BoJack like loved her so much, is because of that. Because everyone else in his life, treating him like shit after Island, regardless if it was justified or not. Diane was the person who brought him to rehab and kept telling him, you need to do this and do that, and and he did that, and and he also, and BoJack helped out Diane with some other stuff.
When she was like crashing at like his apartment and things like that, and I believe it was season 3.
Yeah, so it's just like a lot of that. I don't know. I think that conversation was really great. When she thanks him, that was just so emotional. And the final shot with the music and them just looking at the stars, the blue color, and it's just it's amazing, man.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the best final shots.
Yeah, I just thought it was a fantastic conclusion.
Yeah, I can't really think of a better way for them to wrap things up. So yeah, I think we pretty much talked at length about everything regarding the finale. So much great stuff going on there. Before we do wrap things up, though, I do want to briefly touch upon that even though the season was very dark, there was still some really great comedic elements in there. And there were many great elements for sure, whether it was the Margot Martindale stuff, which we already talked about, so much great stuff there. The characters of Paige and Max, I thought, were much better this time around. I did not really like them in the mid-season finale. I thought that they were too heightened and goofy, but because of how dark everything else was, I thought they really provided some nice levity for this season. The funniest joke for me is when Paige is with her family and they're like, why do you all talk like that? We live in like this part of the world. I thought that was great because I was like, why is this character talking differently from everyone else? And then you realize that was the point. And I think things like that were just so great. There were a lot of great comedic elements this season, even in the background of the finale. When they reveal that Wanda has been in a second coma and now she's like president of wherever she was living and things like that, is such a brilliant idea. And they definitely went all out in terms of humor as well. There's not as much humor this time around, but I think there was just enough peppered in there to still feel like BoJack overall.
Yeah, I would pretty much agree. The much more serious stuff was the more focused this time around for obvious reasons. But you definitely do still get that comedic side of BoJack Horseman. I still do think it's really well handled and it is very funny.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, so with all that said, before we do get into our final thoughts for this season, I am going to briefly touch upon any flaws that we might have had. So for me, when it comes to this season, this was such a successful final season of television. I really only have like one or two flaws here. Now, the first one I had was a big one for a long time. It took me a while to realize that it wasn't really that big of an issue, but it is the fact that we saw Gina in the mid-season finale, and I really thought they were going to do something with her here. I really thought that there was going to be something that happened, and that's not the case. We see that she does end up in that superhero movie in the background of the finale, which I think is a really cool idea. My issue is more, I'm not entirely sure why that did not come up in any interviews or any allegations, because him choking a co-star, is one of the worst things that he ever did. And I just don't understand why that wasn't brought up. So that's something that definitely does bother me a bit, but it's not to the point where it ruins this season. For a while, I was really clinging on to it. Like, I don't think they handled that well. But again, there was so much other shit that BoJack did that honestly, I think they covered everything they needed to as carefully as possible. And I think him, doing what he did to Gina is a result of all of the other things that had happened to him. So I think it's actually, while I do still wish that they had been addressed in like that interview or something, I can understand why they did not. And my only other issue is that there are some plot developments that we touched upon, like the Pickles and Mr. Peanut Butter one, that do feel ever so slightly rushed. You can definitely tell at points that Raphael Bob-Waksberg wanted this to be 2 seasons. He wanted to be able to flesh out everything a little bit more. And it is unfortunate that he was not able to do it. But I think considering how much he had to do in the 8 episodes, he really did nail it here. And it's nothing that is a real detriment to this season in my eyes.
I would pretty much agree. Mainly my little issues with the season are just kind of some plot things that are kind of a bit rushed and stuff like that, like the Mr. Peanut Butter and Pickle stuff at first just wasn't really all that interesting and stuff. Really, that's my only issue, is just some plot elements here or there. Other than that, I think pretty much all the greatness of the season outweighs anything that kind of is a little bit of issuing to me.
Absolutely.
My only issues with this part is that there are things that are just rushed, like the court dispute.
Yeah.
And then like when he goes to jail, like all that stuff is just like rushed. And I get it had to be, but I don't know. I just wish there was a little bit more time spent on that. You know what I mean? Like
that is a slight nitpick for me. Yeah.
But that's it. The rest of it's fucking amazing too.
Yeah, definitely. But so just final thoughts on this season overall. I know we've gotten to a lot of stuff here. This is a very long review, but I mean, there was a lot of ground to cover, so that's to be expected. Overall thoughts on this season. When it comes down to it, I really could not have been happier with the way things wrapped up here. They did a great job of retaining, the tone that we've had for this show, but also delving into far more the darkest territory possible and really giving us the reckoning that was always coming to BoJack, but also giving us that that care that was always put into not him, but just every other character here, really showing the journeys that they've been through, everything that's happened to them. I think they did such an excellent job with that this season. Just the attention to detail, the ways they called back to certain things. It really is just a sign of fantastic writing. These are writers that knew how they wanted to end the show. Again, even though they didn't want this to be the final season, they wanted to be able to do one more. You can tell they gave it their all. They did everything they possibly could to make this as satisfying of a season as possible. And when looking back on it, I can definitely look back on this season and be very satisfied with the way the show ended. Considering the way it started and the way it ended, I could not be happier with the way things did wrap up here. I honestly do think this is a near perfect final season in my mind. I really did love pretty much everything here.
So, of course, I'm now going to grade both this half of the season and the season overall. So, for the second half of Season 6 of BoJack Horseman, I am going to give it an A. And then the season overall, I'm also going to give an A.
Well, I've been watching this show, since 2014.
Yeah.
And, it's really crazy because, like, this is, like, the first ever show that, like, I really watched and, like, I was, like, there from the beginning to the end, and, like, seeing the fan base grow and, the impact of the show grow. It's just, like, it's been really interesting to see. And, when it comes to this season, I was really, really satisfied how it all wrapped up. There were just so many just great moments, and I'm going to miss the show. I want this to be the last season. I said that in our season 5 review, but I'm happy this was the last season, but at the same time, it's still going to be kind of sad that we won't have any more new BoJack. You know what I mean? Tuca and Birdie's also canceled, so that also sucks. But
so much potential there.
Yeah,
it was just getting great too.
Yeah, so that sucks, but it is what it is, I guess. The first part of this I really liked, but this second part was just fucking amazing. To give this part individual rating, part 1 was a 7 out of 10. This for me is a 9. So overall, I'd give the season like an 8 out of 10. But man, the second part was just fantastic. It was such a great conclusion with so much emotion and just, wrapping up the characters the best way possible. And I was so satisfied. And this is definitely one of my favorite shows of all time. And yeah.
I like I said before, I've really grown to love this show a lot. It is very close to being my favorite show of all time. I just love everything about this show, from its characters to its atmosphere to its writing. Just everything, in my humble opinion, about the show is perfect. I just really gravitated to this show, and has meant a lot to me in the short time that I have watched this show. And I think it's just a real work of art, in my opinion. And I do think it's one that should watch and, really should get to, because it definitely deserves to be seen by everyone. And it's an amazing piece of art, in my opinion. I really loved it a lot. So overall, in this final season, I think it does wrap things up really great, in my opinion. I really loved where the characters went. I think it wraps up its story really well, in my opinion. And there was not a more perfect way they could have done it, in my opinion. So I'm going to give it an A.
All right, guys. So that is it. Believe it or not, we are now done. And in the span of 2 months, guys, 2 of the most emotionally draining shows I've ever watched has concluded. And I don't know what to do in my life anymore. As BoJack would say, BoJack has ended and everything is worse now, because we're not going to be able to talk about this show anymore. But either way, I am, like I said, very satisfied with the way things did wrap up here. I want to thank you guys for watching all my BoJack reviews over the years. I remember season 1, I just randomly started binging because I heard the show got really great. I didn't really think I was going to stick with it that much. I didn't really think it would do much for me, but I fell in love with it pretty quickly. And since then, I just feel it's been getting consistently better. And just to see where it's gone now, it's just really great to see. But Of course, before I do my outro and things like that, I do want to thank both of my guests here. First of all, he's been with me for, like I said, a season and a half and things like that. And, we've been talking about the show for a very long time now. It's definitely one of the biggest shows of our entire friendship for sure. So before we do close things out, what else do you want to say, Caden, before we end this?
It's crazy the show's fucking over. I'm gonna
Yeah.
miss it. And I'm just happy that these reviews had good microphone quality on like season 5.
Oh, God.
I hope everyone loved this, had a great time watching the show, even though it was super depressing. But yeah, I mean, I guess to plug stuff, I have a YouTube channel, Letterboxd, music, yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm very glad we were able to get him for this video, because if it wasn't for this, the next show we'd be reviewing together is the 2nd season of Sacred Lies, and I know how much he adores that show, and he can't wait for that show to come out. So what do you want to say before we wrap this up?
I'm gonna miss the show a lot. It was definitely a thing that but even though I didn't really get to watch it from the beginning, when I did watch it, I would look forward to whenever the new season would come out. And it's gonna be weird not having a new season come out now and stuff like that. But like I said, all good things must come to an end, and it had to at some point. And I think the way that ended was pretty perfect. So if you want to, you can find me on my YouTube channel, FilmFan0599. You can find me on my Letterboxd, WWE Fan0599, even though they won't let me change the username.
We've been over this, okay? It's because you don't have a fucking pro account.
I don't care. I should still be able to change my username. Anyways, motherfucker. Anyways, but thank you for watching. Very much appreciate it, and thank you for Kevin for having me on here. So I'm FilmFan0599, and we'll see you all later.
Of course, man. Was very happy to get you on here. But with that, guys, that is it for our BoJack reviews. Like I said, thank you to all for watching my reviews throughout the entirety of the show. Hope you guys did enjoy this very, very long video about this very impactful and, emotionally draining show for sure. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, if you guys have seen the season, which I hope you have, because we just spoiled literally everything. If you guys have, of course, let us know what you guys thought of this season overall. Did you like the way it wrapped up? All that kind of stuff. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
Fuck you.